Hello and welcome, beautiful ones. I am a couple minutes early. Figured I would just kind of segue into the topic here. Just kind of, give some time and let people get situated if anybody's going to show up today. We're going to delve into a lot today, so I'm excited about that because there is a ton of stuff that all comes full circle, especially because we are in really trying times right now. If you happen to be watching when this is new, this is, gosh, my days are so mixed up. I'm just going to say it's June of 2020, toward the end of June. And the thing about that is that we are going into some very confusing, very trying times where there's a lot of frustration that is being revealed, and that is coming out in the sense of entitlement and tantrums and all of these things that is further giving us a little bit of compassion fatigue. So, it's trying for everybody right now. And so all of these topics that I plan to cover today are going to go into a much larger picture. Let's go ahead and start with claiming your time and scheduling. And this is something that I think it's imperative to look at our schedules and see what we're doing every single day and how much time we are giving to other people and different things. Get a pen and paper and just kind of jot down what you do every day, from sleeping patterns to naps to cooking, prep time, commute, driving somewhere, the things that you're doing for other people. Just kind of write down what your typical day looks like and try to include, and I know for some of it's so varied for some of us, but try to include those things that it doesn't matter how much time it takes, but those things that are part of your daily routine. And going in with that, if you have a day off, do the same for your days off. And I know for some of us it doesn't feel like a day off, but I think that getting to the heart of what it is we do can help us to more or less claim our time. The idea behind this is, there was a time when I was valuing sleep over putting makeup on, and I decided that I could get in a couple hours of sleep if I did it that way. I didn't have to wake up and put all this extra time and energy into putting the makeup on. I was able to get recharged. Coffee. Sometimes there were times when I had to skip the coffee. So I decided that was important to me. So I made time to where I could wake up early enough to have at least one cup of coffee and then get going. So by prioritizing what we do, we can really reflect on how much time and energy we're giving to other people and how much time and energy we can give back to ourselves. That's a major part of valuing our time, is to sit with it and kind of prioritize what we want and what we don't and all of those things. This goes into our world versus the world around us. Right now, especially, there is a lot going on in the world. And for some of us, it's easy to say our world is the only one that matters. And it doesn't, because in order to elevate, I think that we have to consider the experiences of others around us. If we are going to truly be at our peak, we want everybody else to be at their peak as well. So we may have a lot of things going on at the time. We may have a ton of stuff that we're trying to work through emotionally. There may be some things going on that have proven very difficult to us in our world. And I'm kind of trying to sidestep this because I don't want anybody to reflect too much on this. I want people to feel uplifted and I want people to feel positive, but I'm going to go ahead and say some of the things that we're dealing with in our personal world. We're trying to decompress things that are going on in our personal lives, from our feelings to grief to trying to make sense of things and even trying to navigate life with different personalities, and different personalities, of course, are going to have different priorities. And, so we are unpacking a lot on the personal level, and it's hard to decompress when we're seeing a lot of things that are going on around us. And I think that sometimes we're taking some of this very personally, because we're in this space of thinking the world doesn't matter in my world, but it does. And if that world matters to other people outside of ourselves, it is imperative that we are trying to, how shall I say this? It's imperative that we are understanding of where somebody else comes from, because our world is not the end all. It is not the one and only space that we're in. Other people have their things going on, and because right now it's a collective consciousness, it's really important to honor that. So just because they may not be going through the individual experience that we're struggling with, they're going through something, and perhaps these individual experiences for somebody else have come into the collective consciousness. And I know that, in keeping this kind of vague, I know that a lot of people are going to understand exactly what I'm saying. So, it's kind of this one thing after another piling up, and then finally having this voice that is coming together to speak upon those things. So our world is not the end all. Sometimes we are feeling as if we're seeing things outside of ourselves, and we're thinking, what about me? What about what I'm going through right now? And the two things do not have to be mutually exclusive. I can be going through whatever I'm going through right now and still care about my friends. I can still care about what's going on in the world, even if I'm not in the right space to be involved, because our mental health is so important. And I want to emphasize this, because for some, and at times myself, it is taking a toll to see some of these things being revealed in the world. So it is important to take a step back and get your clarity, to get your individual experience in the space where you can do what's right for you, whether it is speaking up, whether it is expressing your own experiences. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Some of us do not feel that we are in a safe space to do so. Find who you feel safe to speak up with, because personalities are showing a lot right now. So our world doesn't have to be isolated from the world around us. But as I said, a lot of people are thinking, well, what about me? What about what I'm going through right now? That is perfectly valid. But so is the collective consciousness, because we're dismissing it and thinking that it is one large movement that is speaking to one thing. That's not it. As I said, it's the individual experience of coming together in that collective consciousness. Getting back to the individual experience one more time before I move on. We're not all going to experience the same traumas at the same time. And so this is where we feel disconnected from things. This is where we sometimes feel like there's nobody in our own collective consciousness that can truly understand what we're going through. And this is why sometimes we're feeling like we're going through things alone. A lot of things have been experienced in different times. We respond to different things in such a different way that maybe somebody is, maybe one person can go through the same thing and they become dissociative. Maybe another person goes through the same thing and they feel it so hard that they're not able to decompress or dissociate in some way. And, there's no real right or wrong way to go about it. But it's important to know that the way that one person responds to something is their way. It doesn't mean that they are dismissing, or we shouldn't dismiss how other people respond. But it doesn't mean that they are dismissing the response of others. As I said, I don't want to get too deep because I want to keep things positive, but I'm just going to give an example. If somebody's late to a funeral, we want to sit and cast judgment and say, you know, they were late and they shouldn't have been and they should have done it this way. And that's not ours to say, to speak upon. You know, it may be hurtful in a way, but maybe this is the way that they respond to things. And, you know, maybe that's easier for their own health because we're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes. We're not seeing how they're trying to deal with things when they're alone. So a little bit of compassion right now is going to be everything. And I think that's pretty much it for the individual versus the collective. If you have questions on that, please get back to me. But I think that we need to kind of meet in the middle to understand that our experience right now is not the only experience. Here's where I'm going to try to get into some stuff that goes a little bit deeper here. Morals and values, where we connect and where we disconnect. When we meet those people that we are in line with, when we just resonate so much with their energy, with what they're saying, we know that we're in this we have this connection. We feel a safe space where we can be ourselves and we can speak up and we can say what we need to. And we can just, you know, kind of clear the air with just being us and talking about the things that are important to us and not feel like we're going to be dismissed or diminished. How many of us have had friends that aren't necessarily in line with our goals, with what we want for ourselves and that kind of thing? You know, you show them something and they're like, oh, that's nice. And then they kind of make you feel like, you know, they just make you feel like this small. When we find the people that we can talk about things and they're celebrating and cheering alongside of us, we know that that is our group, that is our people, and that is the people that we want to be around, the people that are encouraging us and the people that are answering our questions and not making us feel stupid for being curious, because curiosity is, I'm a very curious person. I will ask a billion questions. But curiosity is how we learn to receive and respond to the world around us. And getting in line with people that have the same morals and values and the same energy and the same everything. You know, we're going to disconnect on a few things, but that is where we can start to learn about things, especially if an experience differs from our own. And this is also helpful in knowing that, again, going back to individual experience, our own experience is not the end all. That is not the only way. There are billions of different personalities and experiences out there. And in understanding that, we can value one another so much more. And I think that in doing that, we can also value our own, because we're not telling ourselves, oh, you know, you don't need to be upset about this, or, oh, you're overreacting. We're not telling ourselves those things that we have been internalized to believe. So we are able to feel a little bit more freely and seek out the people who have the compassion and the understanding. I wasn't going to mention this, but I am today because I feel like this is kind of in line with it. In understanding ourselves and understanding what we've been through, it is okay to heal from that, because a lot of times we get hung up on this idea that we have to hold it close to our hearts. Otherwise, we get into this space where we think that if we don't hold on to it, that it didn't happen, that we are dismissing our pain, we are dismissing our traumas. That's not true. Sometimes it is about acknowledging that pain and trying to find a way to move forward so we're not reliving the pain and the trauma. So it doesn't mean that we are dismissing or diminishing our pain. It is meaning that it is okay to come into this space where we're breaking free of that a little bit more. Yes, it still happened, but our peace is important. And, you know, it's hard not to relive the traumas over and over. I know that I spoke to somebody recently and they were talking about being addicted to anxiety. I was in that space, being addicted to trauma, being addicted to depression, being addicted to my own traumas and pain. Now, what I want to say about this, I'm not diminishing depression or anxiety by any means. I still struggle in my own way with those things, but I have learned how to go forward for myself, and I don't get into anybody else's medical issues because I'm not a doctor, but for myself, I have learned to navigate with those things and how to feel what I need to, but also to know that, you know, this is something that I give myself permission to work through and not to be ashamed of that, and to be able to go forward in the way that is right for me. That way is not going to, it's not going to be right for everybody, but I have found my personal path with that. But I would get stuck in traumas and I would relive them, and it did feel like an addiction. When that person had said this to me recently, it just sparked that I had done that before. And for me, what came to my realization was to know that if I laid on the floor all weekend because I had a moment where something dragged me back to the past of having been bullied in school or whatever the case was, I knew that I was not going forward for myself. And so it's hard to overcome those traumas. But for me personally, I had to realize those people are no longer driving my car. In the metaphorical sense, I had to take the keys back and, you know, drop them off somewhere and just go on my merry way, to continue with the metaphor here. But it was this moment of, if I stop what I'm doing and relive that pain again, it's gonna hurt all over again. And so I gave myself permission to move forward from it, but also to give myself permission to feel what I needed to from that. So it's a fine balance. It's something that does stick with you at times. And it's something that, you know, even when we find what works for us, we will still struggle with it. But my main point with that was, when it comes to releasing, it doesn't mean that your feelings or your experience wasn't valid. It means that you are doing what you need to for yourself, because nobody else is driving your car, and, you know, you shouldn't be giving them the keys. So a lot easier said than done. You know, I've had years of that struggle of trying to learn to navigate. And, you know, again, at times it does come up. So I want to be very clear. I am not diminishing the idea of depression or anxiety, as that's something that I know very well. But it does come full circle with the individual experience. Now we get into the idea of morals and values and how different they are from person to person. And I'm going to get a little bit into the spiritual side here. As I said, we are seeing some behaviors that are just shocking right now. And I think that those behaviors always existed. My mom and I went to this barbecue restaurant one time. This was months before the quarantine, maybe last year or so. But anyway, a worker got mad because he was always late, and one of the other employees was there was cops outside, and we were like, oh, should we go in? This might be a bad idea. But anyway, they said, oh, y'all can come in, it's fine. An employee got mad, and they were told, if you're going to be late like this every day, you can go home, because apparently that had been an issue. And they got angry, and they took a vat of beans and threw it on the floor. It was so bad, and I felt sorry. I'm laughing, but I'm like, oh my God, it's not funny that somebody would act that way, but it's just shocking. And And I just don't understand that, but they threw it all over the floor. And I don't understand the childishness myself, but we've seen these behaviors. There was another time we went to a restaurant, and I think my mom and I both have that face where people can just talk to us, and the manager came over and was talking to us and telling us that somebody had gotten mad because it took them too long to prepare something. And those little buzzers that they give you when you're seating yourself, and it's going to go off when your table's ready. The person took that and threw it at the young lady over the counter, and I thought, you could have really hurt somebody. Or, I mean, if that splashed in a vat of oil and hurt someone, or, I mean, when you're throwing projectiles, you can't really predict what's going to happen. And it's just, it will never cease to amaze me or appall me that people act like this. I know that I keep saying I wasn't intending to talk about certain things, but here we go. So I'm going to tangent again before I get back on track with that. When I was at the post office years ago, I was so shy, social anxiety, all of this. I, struggled with that quite a bit throughout my life. And there was this lady who was just standing in line and being awful. Well, I understood that whatever they were doing behind the counter, they each had their own jobs of what they were supposed to be doing. So there was maybe one person at the counter, maybe two, but I'm going to say it was one. And other people were coming in and out. And this lady kept, look, there's more people back there. Why can't they come out and stand at the stand at the counter and help more people? There wasn't that many people in there. There was a bit of a line, but I mean, it was going to go quick. It wasn't that big of a deal. And I kept trying to think of the term because I wanted so badly to say it, but I couldn't think of what it was in the spur of the moment. And I impart this to you in case you ever have to use it. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And that's something that I use all the time. But in that moment, my mind just glitched. As I said, I did struggle with social anxiety and such. So seeing that kind of confrontational attitude kind of put me in my little isolation space. But I had this whole revelation. If she could be there and she felt entitled enough to come in and make somebody else's job harder, I had every right to be there or anywhere else if I was not doing that. If I was coming in and just doing what I need to and just trying to be as polite as possible, maybe make somebody's day a little bit better, because I don't know what anybody's going through. I have no idea. And it's not my business, but to just, to see that. So she was this major Karen, and that is what inspired me to come out of my shell a little bit more. So anyway, I got up to the line, and I just, was as friendly as I could be under that circumstance. And I wasn't deliberately being smug, but I know that when people are that way and they're angry anyway, they're going to construe it as smugness. And I thought, I hope she sees the difference here. I know she didn't, but I hope she sees the difference. And I hope that by being friendly with that person, that it might create a little bit of a buffer for when it was her turn. So, when it comes, going back to that, when it comes to morals and values and things like that, we have very differing ideas. And not only are we dealing with this life of what we're going through, but I do believe that there are also parallel experiences, parallel universes, dimensions, whatever you want to call them. I'm not a quantum physicist, so I can't explain that on the scientific level of Dr. Michio Kaku or somebody like that actually has the knowledge and understanding and experience. But I don't even understand when half of the things that he says is over my head. I don't even understand how that's possible, but from the spiritual experience, I feel it. So even though I can't put the words to it and I can't quite understand it in that way, I can make sense of it into the way that I receive what's around me. And I've been thinking about this. How can we have people that are so very different when it comes to the morals and values? How can we have people that are so different in the way they are responding to things around them? And as I said, not only is it about what's in this life, but it's also about what's going on in that spiritual zone. And I really think there's something to that. So when we get into Mandela effect type of things, I don't have many of them. I have a couple. Berenstain was always Stain. It was never, was it Steen or Stein? I'm not sure, because I only know it as Berenstain. I don't know the Mandela effect version of what they were. And the only one that I really remember is Nelson Mandela having died way before he actually died. So there's a few that I have, but for the most part, I don't. And one of my friends who has like every single Mandela effect thing has mentioned to me that it's possible that maybe I'm from a totally different plane. And so I thought, okay, well, how does that come into the big picture of just the big picture of the way that we respond to things around us? And if we are from different planes, then yeah, it would make perfect sense. If we are from a parallel universe where things are very different for us. In this case, I really think that it's just our own personal scope of reality, that we're not able to kind of step outside of our comfort zone and see a different scope of reality. It has to be one way or another, because our human experience resonates in that way. But for some of us that do not experience a certain reality, we're able to step outside of our comfort zone. So could this be because we are in a different universe? We come from a plane where people are similar energetically and spiritually to one another. Our auras kind of match up, that kind of thing. I really don't know the actual answer. Like I said, look into Dr. Michio Kaku. He is amazing. And even though some of this stuff is just way over my head, he does bring it down to a level where you can understand it. And once I back away from it, I can't remember anything that was said. But when I'm listening to him, he breaks it down so beautifully. So, and like I said, I'm going off of my own spiritual understanding here. So the other thing about that is, I think that the most important thing is the moral and value code that we have. Because right now, being right, being wrong is not the end all. What I think that it is really going to come down to is our morals and our values in this world, in making progress, in coming together in this way where we want the same things. We want things to be better for everybody across the board without just giving a little to some and a lot to another. We want to make sure that things are being played out in a fair way where everybody is benefiting. And so that's where I think that we're kind of overlooking. So the morals and values are going to be everything right now, because we can be wrong about the details, but when it comes down to it, what are our morals at our core? And gravitating to those who resonate with our energy and those who are just in the same space that we are. It can help us to feel like our voices are being lifted toward that collective consciousness. Maybe right now we're a little hesitant to speak on the individual level. Maybe we're unpacking a lot individually that we're going through and trying to figure out how to bring that to the collective, and if it's right for us right now to be within the collective, because sometimes we're just not in that right space where we're able to do that right now. And if you think of it as a team effort, if you're not in that space where you're ready, or if you're not in that space of being comfortable or confident with what you have to bring to the table, or if you're just learning about something, you may not want to work as part of a team, or you may feel like you're kind of on the outskirts right now just because you're not feeling part of that just yet. But, being curious, that's perfectly fine. And being able to step outside of our comfort zone and learning and growing spiritually as well as with the world around us. Those things I think are going to get us there, and protecting our space, our mental health, that is so important. And like I said, it's not about being right. Everybody's wanting to be right. It's about doing the things that are compassionate, the empathetic answer, living by a moral code that we know is right, and having those values that resonate with what is right. I know I probably bumped my desk, but something kind of situated, so I had to wonder here. And in that collective consciousness, I do feel that while there are things going on in the mundane realm, I'm also very much feeling that there's, I don't know how else to say this, but there is a spiritual awakening going on. And for those who are not stepping outside of that comfort zone, they may not get to be in that space of truly feeling that, or truly connecting with the spirituality aspect. And in that, some of us are going to have to come and do this all over again. I may be one of them. I'm trying every day. I know that there were some lives that I've had that were where I didn't get it, where I was in my own bubble. I don't want to say that I was nobility or a princess or anything like that. It wasn't anything that extravagant, but it was, I think that in this life I've had a connection to where I was more or less, the girlfriend, and that was it. That was my identity. So I did not see outside of myself. I've had lives where that was my entire life path, was children and being married and not knowing what was going on outside of my world or my bubble. And so that's why I've been sent back again to open up to what is important and what is right and what is real. But I've also had a bunch of other different lives. I had one where a friend pinpointed this one for me. I was in the spiritual world way too deep, like maybe not way too deep, but I'm finding that balance. That was my life at that time. It was, meditating all the time and growing spiritually, and that was it. So bringing those two lives together where, I had both of those things in this realm, in this life. So, I got to experience that, but it's bringing them together, that spiritual life and that one where I was so self-absorbed, and I don't think I was happy there. But I've found a way to find that balance in this life. So as I said, some of us may have to come and do this all over again, but I am already seeing who is enlightened and who is on path with, just doing the right thing and exuding some compassion. That's where we got to be right now. And, no matter how we choose to give that off, whether it's even a kind word or, just being there for one another, or just listening, even if we don't have the right words now, it's a growing process. So eventually we'll get there. So stay safe, everybody. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to get back to me. I have been talking for half an hour already, a little bit over, since I started early. Last thing I want to say. So if I end up posting this one on YouTube, which I probably will, if I end up posting this one, I'm going to try to get my paintings in here. And the idea is to look at those paintings and ask yourself, okay, so what is it that I feel from this? What is it that I get from this? What details do I notice? And that kind of, I'm having a stuttering problem suddenly. What details do I notice that pop to me, from visual to just how you're feeling inside. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the artwork that you like, but the one that speaks to you, because when something speaks to us, it's almost like we feel something, and getting underneath that feeling can help us to reveal so much more about ourselves. But also, it shows how if we put artwork up around us, how we convey different feelings to ourselves, but also to the people that are around us. And that gets a little bit iffy, because not everybody's going to have the same experience to a painting. But I do think that there are certain colors and patterns that resonate with a majority of people. Last thing I'm going to say before I go, when I talk about people being from different planes and having different experiences, I think those of us that burn sage have seen this in effect. So when we're burning sage and people are like, I love how that smells, that's amazing. We're like, yeah, because you're in a good space. And then when we burn it because we have somebody negative coming over, so we're preparing for their visit, and, and somebody that's negative, they are going to tell you exactly what they think when they step in that door. And they're going to say, oh God, what is that? Are you cooking something? Because that does not smell very good. And so we kind of know who's going to resonate with the sage and who's not. So it can be that we're on different parallel wavelengths, that we come from different places spiritually. Just like I come from the one dimension that there's no real Mandela effect, because everything, it was always flint stones, not Flintstones, flint stones. That just makes sense. So all of those things, that's what it's supposed to be, right? But all of those things don't resonate with me. So I've been told, yeah, you're from a different place and time. From the people that experience Mandela. But it also shows that we are, at any given time, we can grow and have our different paths. And even if we are from one plane, we can expand on that through meditation and just kind of taking a step outside of ourselves and being willing to be uncomfortable and listening to other people. So again, I'm going to wrap up for the second time. I will let y'all go about your day. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. If you have any questions, get back to me. Sorry about the stuttering. I stuttered before the braces. They're still, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to blame them though. But forgive the stuttering. Get back to me if you have any questions, and I will see y'all soon. Have a wonderful day.